Hi there, mathematicians. Today we are going to be using for Math Workshop our Math Notebook blue resource folder that's inside of your Anchor binder. Remember, do not take your folder out of your binder. Leave it inside. Sticky note, multiple highlighters, and you are going to use your pencil. Do not use pen and the glue stick. So go ahead and move some of that stuff out of your way. And we are going to go in our blue folder first. So go ahead and open it up. Today we are going to be working on our classified triangles lesson. So if you will, go ahead and take out from your left teach pages the page that says number 14 and the page that says number 15. We're going to use 2 pages today in our notebook. The rest of the pages, make sure they're still nice and neat and organized. Put the clip back on so then none of your teach pages get lost. And then on the right side, your homework or classwork pages, you're only going to take out the very next sheet. So the one that says classified triangles, go ahead and slip that out. Put your paper clip back on. And then you can fold up your blue folder and then put your anchor binder away. We're going to start with having our teach pages. So let's go ahead and open up to our table of contents. We are going to record inside of our notebook. So yesterday we did a lesson on parallel and perpendicular lines. Today we're going to be moving on to the next page. So let's double check what page we're going to start on. So yesterday was page 12 and 13. Today is going to be pages 14 and 15. So I'm just recording those pages on the top left and then the top right. And then I'm going back to our page. So on page 14, that's the lesson that we record on our table of contents. We're going to write the words classify triangles. And then this is going to be on 8-25-20. So turning back to page 14 where this lesson will begin, we're going to be very careful to glue these pages on the correct page. So the page that says 14 is going to go on page 14. The page that says 15 is going to go on page 15. So using your glue stick, turn your paper over. Make that frame on the outside and the X through the middle. And then stick that sheet down by smoothing it out. The right side page, do the same process with your glue stick. And the X through the middle. And then turn your page over and smooth it down. If when you glued your page down, if you went over where you recorded on a notebook page, just go ahead and copy that on top. All right. So we are still working in the middle of our geometry unit. So you should be studying your vocabulary cards that you were given last week, remembering that this Friday is going to be a vocabulary quiz where you are not allowed to use your vocabulary flashcards. You should be practicing on mastering, memorizing the words to match the definition and what those example pictures look like. We're also going to be ending our geometry unit on Thursday, so we're going to have an end of unit quiz to see how much we learned during this unit. So today we're going to be focusing on how to classify triangles. So when we look at classifying triangles, we're going to go through some of this information to help us. Well, first thing we're going to do is to highlight the title to know what our focus of our learning is today. So when we see the word triangle, we see a prefix, tri. So go ahead and write that down. And with prefixes, we need to know that they have a definition or a meaning. So when we see that prefix tri, we should know that that means there's going to be 3. And when we finish the word by saying 3 angles, that's going to tell us that there are going to be 3 angles within this shape and 3 sides. So when we see this, we're going to say it's 3 sides, 3 angles. So that is what we call the characteristics of a triangle. We can see that that is written down for us. So it says a triangle is a polygon with 3 sides and 3 angles. So I'm going to go ahead and box the shape that we're going to be focusing on today, because it's our job to learn how to identify and then classify based on the size of the sides, so the measurement of those sides, and then the measurement of the angles within. So there's two different ways that we're going to learn how to classify or categorize those. The next part says each pair of sides joins at a vertex. I'm going to box that word vertex because that's another important vocabulary word that we need to remember what it means. And we said a vertex is like an elbow. It's where two line segments or lines or rays join together to have that touching part. So when we look at the shape down below, we can see that there are 1, 2, 3 elbows or 3 vertices, or what we call vertices. So it says you can name a triangle by its vertices. So this is going to be the plural of that word vertex. It then gives us some examples of how we can actually identify this example. So just like we learned with line segment rays, there are symbols that we use instead of the words. So it looks like triangle. So we see there's a triangle and then 3 points. The 3 points just let us know how we can identify it. So when we look at the first example, PQR, we would start on the point P, then go to the point Q, and then to the point R. This refers to a triangle because of the shape and the points mentioned. The rest of the other 5 are the same thing, just starting in a different order or going in a different direction. So we're going to go ahead and just give ourselves a little note about that word vertices. So I'm going to record it to the side. And as a reminder, this is going to tell me that there's more than one vertex. And we always need to remember that vertex means it looks kind of like an elbow or a point in a shape. So as we're recording, if you need to pause the video, do that now, and then you can get yourself caught up. The next part says there are 3 types of triangles, and all triangles have at least 2 acute angles. So one of the ways that I said we were going to classify is by naming the size of the angles. So if we are learning that all triangles, no matter what type of triangle it is, has at least 2 acute angles, that then tells me the third angle will name the triangle. So we're going to put our little note that says the third angle names the triangle. So that's a very important fact for you to remember, that every type of triangle always will have 2 acute angles. Whatever the third angle will be actually names the triangle. So in order to know how to name it, we're going to learn about 3 of the ways to classify. The first is to name it an obtuse triangle. So if we remember our rule that every triangle has 2 acute, I'm going to look at the first triangle to find the acute. So the acute and tiny is on the top point. Acute and tiny is on the bottom right point. Then the third angle names it, so whatever the third angle is will then refer to the name of the triangle. So in this case, looks like a recliner, so this triangle is called an obtuse triangle because obtuse means it's greater than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. The next kind is called a right triangle. So once again, we remember our original rule, 2 acute angles in every triangle. So I have to locate my 2 acute to know what third one will name it. So acute and tiny, top, acute and tiny on the side. The third one is the different color highlighter. And in this case, I already see there's a box to indicate a 90-degree angle or a right angle. So because the third angle is a right angle, this triangle is called a right triangle. The third one is going to be what's called an acute triangle. This one is going to be very special because not only does it follow the original rule of every triangle has two acute. An acute triangle actually has all three be acute. So we can still follow the rule that the third angle names it. So when we look, we can see there's one acute, cute and tiny, two acute, and then the third one is going to be the cute and tiny. So that means three acute is automatically called an acute triangle. So the first type of way to classify is by the angles. Looking at two of those angles have to be acute for every triangle, and remembering that the third angle is going to name it. So we're going to then look down at our example. It says name the triangle, tell whether each angle is acute, right, or obtuse. A name for the triangle is, so once we look at this, we can then go back to it and name it. So our job is to now look at this triangle and remember the rule. There has to be at least two acute angles. So I'm going to identify cute and tiny means that it's less than 90 degrees. So the first one, I'm going to put a little dot in the angle. And another one is the Z, it's cute and tiny. So when I look at the symbol that says angle X, when it's a single letter, we need to remember that's the vertex or the elbow. So angle X, we see that we've indicated this is an acute, so I'm going to write acute. The next one is angle Y is, well, we don't know what that is quite yet, so we're going to jump to the last one. Angle Z is, we've already indicated that's also acute because it's cute and tiny, less than 90 degrees. So I know so far that we have one acute, two acute, which means this third one is going to name the triangle. Well, I need to remember what my classification or my descriptions are for the angles. We had acute, which is less than 90. We have right, which looks like a box that is equal to 90 degrees exactly. And obtuse looks like a recliner. For this particular one, we see that it looks like a recliner facing the left side. So this recliner means this is an obtuse angle. So I can write obtuse for the missing angle for Y. And because of our rule of knowing two acutes, and then the third one names it, I'm going to name this as an obtuse triangle. So I know what type of triangle it is, but I need to give it a name. A name is not obtuse triangle, it's indicating a symbol with the letters that match. So I'm going to put the triangle symbol, and then I'm going to look at making sure I place these points in an order. So I'm going to give it a name of X, Z, Y. So X, Z, Y. Or you could also do maybe triangle Y, Z, X. And there's lots of different ways you can do this. So just making sure that you recorded all 3 points. The next part is asking us to classify each triangle, writing acute, right, or obtuse. For this part, pause the video, try to identify, and then come back and check your work. Number 2, our first job is to find the acute. So when it is just a homework assignment or classwork and you don't have highlighters with you, instead of highlighting acute, I usually just circle the acute. So when I find acute and tiny, I circle it. Acute and tiny, I circle it. Then I just trace the third one. So the third angle shows there's a box. So that means there is a right triangle shown. The third one, we circle the acute and tiny, circle acute tiny, and the third one is still acute and tiny, so this is an acute triangle. And the last one, I find my acute and tiny, find my acute and tiny, and then the third one looks like an upside down recliner, so I write obtuse. So remember your rule on classifying triangles based on the angle is to always locate the 2 acute angles inside the triangle first, and the third angle will name the triangle. Next thing you need to do is to get out these sticky notes, because we know that we can classify based on angles, but we now need to know Well, how can I classify with the size of the sides? So we're going to write at the top types of triangles. So we said there was an obtuse triangle, right triangle, and acute. Now we're talking about the length of the sides. So there's 3 ways we can measure the length of the sides to identify. The first is what's called scalene. So go ahead and write scalene, underline it. And when we think about the word scalene, we need to remember this type of triangle has no equal sides. So all 3 of the sides are of different lengths. And the way that Mrs. Ling always remembers that, because it says no, there's an N that I circle, and the word scalene has an N. So I make that visual match. When I see the word scalene with the N, that means no equal sides. Number 2, the second way to identify the length of the sides of a triangle is the word isosceles. Isosceles, go ahead and underline. This one means that there are 2 sides that have equal length. So 2 equal sides. Because we have the number 2, I look at 2 letters that look similar, which when you're typing out the letter I, it looks like a long straight lowercase l. So those 2 tall letters in the word isosceles remind me that this type of triangle have 2 equal sides. And the last way to identify a triangle based on the length of the side is called equilateral. So go ahead and write equilateral, underline it. And this is a type of triangle that all the sides are the same. So all sides are equal. When I see all sides are equal, I see that there's a prefix at the beginning of this word, equa, that means the word equal. So if I remember equal means equal, that's going to help me remember those words. So now we've learned 2 different ways to identify and classify triangles. The first was based on the angles. The second is the measurement of the sides. So we're going to move on to our last practice. This last practice, you're going to look in your top box. So because this is only for our reference, I'm going to go ahead and highlight to remind myself this is a good place to look so I can make sure I'm identifying the correct types of triangles. And it reviews some of the terminology. So the first, it tells me the first is an acute angle, so you can very carefully highlight acute angle. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. The next is a right angle is exactly, and I'm going to just underline exactly and go back and underline less than. So right angle is exactly 90 degrees. And the last one is obtuse angle, which is greater than 90 degrees. So we said acute is cute and tiny. The right angle looks like the wall, meaning the floor with a box. An obtuse angle is going to be like a recliner. We use that information of angles to help then name our types of triangles based on the angle size. So the first we said again was an acute triangle, and that's going to have 3 acute angles. A right triangle has still the 2 acute angles, but the third one names it because it has 1 right angle. And the last was the obtuse triangle, that once again it has those 2 acute angles. The third one is obtuse, so we say this is called an obtuse triangle. Take a moment, try to identify the name of each of these based on only the angles. The first one, we once again find the cute and tiny, the acute angles, because we know every triangle has 2. The third one, I'm going to highlight this time to name it. So the third one looks like a recliner, so we call this obtuse. Letter B, we locate the acute and tinies. And there's 3 acute and tiny. That tells me this is called an acute triangle because all 3 are acute. Letter C, we have acute and tiny, acute and tiny. The third one names it. And this time the wall and the floor meet, but there's not a box pictured inside. If you don't have a box in the picture, that doesn't mean that it's not a right angle. Your trick is to use the corner of a sticky note. If you can use the corner of a sticky note and it matches perfectly to the side and the top, you can make sure that that is a 90-degree angle. So this one is a right angle. On the bottom line, we have acute and tiny, and another acute and tiny. So 3 acute angles, that is acute triangle. Letter E, we have acute and tiny, meaning 2 acute angles. The third one at the top is going to name it. So it looks like an upside down recliner, so we call this an obtuse triangle. And the last one, we have 3 acute angles, so therefore it's an acute triangle. So remember that when we are asked to classify triangles, you have 2 ways to classify. One is by the angles on the inside of triangle, remembering that 2 are acute. The third one is going to name it. And the last way to identify how to classify triangle is by the length of the sides. We have scalene, meaning no equal sides. Isosceles means 2 equal sides. And equilateral means all 3 are the same size. Once you're done with your notebook, you have your classwork to complete. So that is the paper that we took out of our blue folder. So at the top right, classwork. And once again, we're only going to be focusing on the even numbers. So then we go ahead and circle numbers 2, 4, and 6 on the front. Flip your page over, and on the back, you're going to circle 2, 4, and 6. So for today, you're going to take a picture of your 2 teach pages in your notebook that you completed and followed directions, and then of your classwork when you have completed and followed the directions for the first 3 on the front side and the 3 on the back side. All right, now